I don't know that clients are going to be willing to pay junior attorneys to do something that where an AI agent would do it in minutes. I'm in the camp that AI is going to be replacing work that's done by professionals. I think within the next 3 years, we're going to see.
Welcome to Between the Briefs, a podcast by Steno. We're here to bring you practical tips, expert insights, and real conversations about the pretrial process, court reporting, and the legal technology shaping the future of litigation. I'm your host, Adrian.
And I'm your host, Joe Stevens. Whether you're an attorney, paralegal, or just curious about how technology is changing the legal industry, we've got something for you. Each episode will break down complex topics, share behind-the-scenes intel, and talk to the people leading innovation in and out of the courtroom. So grab a coffee and let's get into what's happening between the briefs.
In this episode, we're excited to welcome JP Sun, the Chief Legal Officer and Corporate Secretary at Verbit. Verbit is a leader in AI-powered transcription and captioning services, revolutionizing the way legal professionals, educators, and businesses approach accessibility and efficiency through speech technology.
JP's career has spanned the legal, tech, and AI sectors, and he's played a pivotal role in supporting Verbit's growth by providing strategic legal guidance and managing complex corporate and compliance issues. His background also includes key leadership positions at Vonage, where he led the company's IP practice.
JP, welcome to the show. It's fantastic to have you here with us today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's great to be here with you guys. Looking forward to the conversation.
Likewise. So let's get right into it. You currently exist at the intersection of, law and technology, similar to Steno. I would love to know what got your career started in this industry.
I always had a passion for tech. I studied computer science as an undergrad. I had a concentration in AI of all things. This was a long time ago, before it became so mainstream. And so what pulled me towards law was seeing, these foundational legal questions, shaping the trajectory of technology. And so sort of naturally with that background, I started in patents and IP. And that felt like sort of a natural bridge between, the technology and the legal strategy. And, also realizing that tech law is where sort of the most novel and I guess high stakes legal issues can emerge. And these are often novel issues that come with the technology. I think some examples we can think of are how we train AI on user data. We've had some recent questions around using copyright with generative models. And now maybe relevant to where we are is using AI for autonomous decision making. And it's not just interesting legally. I think it's law is directly related to how we behave in society and how we keep order. So I think these questions kind of they apply more generally. And just working in the space, it feels like being on the front lines of really how information, rights, and power will be structured over the coming years.
JP, if you were to sort of place us, or in your perspective, like give us a sense of how revolutionary or transformative the tech era that we're living in right now actually is with the advent of AI. I always feel like every single generation, every single sort of mini revolution or advent of introduction of new innovation, people are excited about. But this just feels like it's at a whole different level of excitement and disruption.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's obviously it's a big change. In the legal space, I think it's changing what it's going to mean to be an attorney and to be a legal professional. And we've seen technology before. There's legal research, there's e-discovery, but for me, this just feels different. It's not just making attorneys faster, more efficient. It's kind of you have to work with the AI. You have to work with the AI, and it's side by side. You can't just say, hey, it's a tool. Like it's going to be fundamental to being a successful professional in law, like, but law is just one place, but I think, you know, uh, it's going to be one of the places where it really has an impact, and I think sooner rather than later.
It makes things a little trickier, more like there's more landmines that the company could step on by using AI. What is your take on this? What has been your experience so far as a chief legal officer?
Yeah, I think look, a chief legal officer, um, you need to be a business partner and a leader first, in my view, and then you're coming with the legal expertise. But you want to start from the former rather than the latter. You happen to have that expertise to help you be that business partner leader. So, um, when I look at my role at Verbit, there's a there's a few uh, aspects to my role. I'd say first, I'm the company's lawyer. Um, any general counsel or chief legal officer is going to do that. You can help navigate the legal complexity. From AI ethics to IP, privacy, regulatory. We're in the accessibility space as well, to guide risk and opportunity. Also as an operator. So, more and more lawyers are being asked to do more, more with less. So for myself, I'm looking for ways to systemize, automate, defriction legal work streams. And so that's contracts, compliance, policy, again, to make legal a growth partner and not a bottleneck. And we happen to be in the legal tech space as well. So also working with products, go to market, strategy teams to uh, to launch our legal tech product. It's Legal Advisor. It's and help position that strategically with our customers and prospects. I think I think more and more, not just lawyers, but everyone, with this new technology, you can't afford to be in silos anymore. It's really you're sort of everyone's overlapping to get to this to get to the right result for the company, and I think you're just going to see more and more of that happen as the technology evolves.
If I was to push on Adrian's question a little more, JP, though, the perception of being inside a company and then having run something past general counsel or taking it to legal, it sometimes can be associated with stifling innovation, right? Like what that so I guess my question is, what kind of framework are you using, or how are you deciding what legal risks are worth taking in the name of innovation without stifling innovation, given the new technology that has so much potential here to just be so transformative?
It's a great question. For me, when people say legal risks, I think there's almost no such thing as a legal risk. Like, what does that mean? I think when people say legal risk, oftentimes they mean, well, I can't really unpack what this means, and I'll just call it a legal risk. But if you actually peel back the onion, it's a business risk. And I think as general counsel or any lawyer, your job is not to it's certainly not to say no. And I think it's not even to make that unilateral decision. I think you wanna be able to unpack that in a way that your colleagues can understand. Look, as a lawyer, if you're well positioned to make that business decision, do it. But I think what you wanna do is you wanna break it down so that the business can approach it as a business risk and take a business decision together. Um, and I think that applies. That's nothing different for AI. I think it just the issues may be more complex in some ways, but that just makes the lawyer's job that much more important to be able to unpack that and simplify it for your colleagues to again make that business decision.
That makes a lot of sense. You don't at the same time you don't want to get sued. So Eh,
Sure. But I even getting sued, I think, short of being unethical or breaking the law, I think it's you know a civil lawsuit. That is also a business decision in my eye. And as long as you're equipping the business to understand the risk and you're working together to get to the smart result. Sometimes it's smart to push the envelope, and it's okay to be sued, right? But you want to do that with eyes, but wide open. You don't want to go in and have people not understand what it really means to take this risk. So again, it's not, you know, what you said at the beginning, Joe, of the question, sort of, legal being the bottleneck or saying no. No, I think the better way to think about it is we're walking side by side and sort of as partners and, to the same place.
Like you mentioned, you're very into technology and in computing, but also with the law aspect of it. How important do you think it is nowadays for lawyers to have both of these fields kind of under their umbrella instead of just the traditional legal route and all you know is law?
I don't think all lawyers have to be like the greatest technologists. I do think that the bar is raised. Um, just, I mean, think about email when it came out decades ago. You need to be able to use email, right? And then legal research. You need to be able to do that. I think, you know, like I said before, AI is not going to be just a tool like those, but you're going to have a basic level of fluency. But there's so much background information that we take for granted at, just living in society, being in the workplace. And I think, you are going to have to, if you want to be a successful professional, legal professional, marketing professional, what have you, you're going to want to get to that level of fluency and, continuously educate yourself, upgrade your knowledge to make sure that, you're not being disadvantaged to your peers and sort of and with each sort of generation or coming out of school, they're gonna be more tech savvy. And I think if you want to stay relevant in this business, you gotta keep up with that.
JP, can we actually go into a little bit about Verbit and what it does, and how, I'm really curious about, set the table for us there.
Sure. So Verbit, what we do is we call it speech intelligence. We've been around for I think 8 or 9 years. Um, so certainly before any of this generative AI technology came out. We you'll see us in different use cases where, if you're watching TV like a basketball game or the Grammys or any of that, you can see us captioning um, at the bottom of the screen. That's sort of an accessibility play. We do similar things in education that really took off during the pandemic, where you had distance learning and people wanted the captions and the transcriptions. And for years we've been doing the same for depositions. We use a combination of our automatic speech recognition and expert human legal reviewers. We're providing really high quality deposition transcripts. And of course, once LLMs hit the scene a few years ago, we got to thinking, okay, we have this really good legacy um, offering and expertise, and how do we help our customers leverage this into into what's next? Um, and you know, for us, that was insights, sort of taking that, capturing those words, and then turning them into actionable insights. So we actually launched last month our legal advisor offering at Legal Week in New York. It's a deposition assistant, um, and what it does, it captures the witness and the attorney, what they're saying. It identifies who's saying what, and now you have like a really really high fidelity input, and you can start helping the attorney in real time with with as I said, insights. Uh, simpler things like a summary that you can update as the deposition is going on. Smart querying. You can just plain text ask questions. Okay, where was this witness on such and such date? Or tell me about this event, or tell me about such and such topic. Whatever it is, you can query the transcript in real time to help shape the questioning. Um, Another thing we're really excited about is to be able to identify inconsistencies in real time. So if the witness says something that was perhaps um, different than what they said 20 minutes ago, or what some other witness said, or some document in the discovery corpus, we can identify that too. And again, that can help, not replace the attorney, but help them become a better version of themselves, so they get to, at the end of the day, a better case outcome for the client.
What you guys do as a company, do you guys get any pushback at all for incorporating AI into your products? Because I know, transcription can also be very traditional of a field, and as it's advancing, there are tons of people that want to stick to more traditional ways of doing things. Do you see that
Mhm.
any type of pushback from your customers or prospects at all?
I think law firms, for the most part, and it may go against the stereotype, that people feel like lawyers are very steeped in tradition. They don't want to change. But actually, what we're seeing is law firms from the largest ones in the AmLaw 200 down to small boutiques. They they understand and that this is coming no matter what. Um, and today there's definitely an openness to to see how they can use the technology to be better lawyers, to do better for their clients. Um, I think a lot of this is, there's great education out in the field already, that all this technology is coming. And I think, unless you've been living under a rock, you know that you better keep up with the pace of change.
Do you in the adoption of the technology that you're talking about, I feel the same way. I feel like as a practicing attorney, like everything beginning with COVID really disrupted what it was like to be in a courtroom, or what it was like to actually, there was this standard way to practice law. And I feel like that's just been completely upended. Um, what kind of, I mean, where do you think this is headed, JP? Where do you, as you sort of look ahead the next 6 months, year or so, do you just think it's going to be sort of an exponential wave of adoption among these bigger firms? Do you think that the industry is going to consolidate in any way? I mean, what are your sort of visions for how this is going to actually have long-term effect?
That's a tough one. That's the $1 million question, right? Um, yeah, I mean, I'll throw a few thoughts out there. We actually had a panel at Legal Week where we had a great discussion on what does it mean to train a junior lawyer. So maybe I'll start from there. Um, a lot of what these tools and technologies are doing is they're replacing that sort of formulaic, you know, rather rote work that junior attorneys are doing today. Um, and it's important work to train these junior attorneys to eventually become mid levels and seniors. So, um, I think one place you're gonna, and so if you think about that, what does that mean? Well, I don't know that clients are going to be willing to pay junior attorneys to do something that, to redline a contract or write a brief, or at least take anything near that amount of time to do, where an AI agent, where an offering could do it in minutes, right? And then the question is, where do these juniors get their training? Um, is it going to be in law schools? I don't know. Maybe, and we've also seen uh, law firms are kind of changing how they do these associate training programs. Um, but then I think that changes the billing model after that as well. Um, and I think once you see that disruption, sure, there could be consolidation. I think you could also see a real decrease in leverage. Um, you know, why do you need armies of junior associates to do the work that anyone knows can be done through automation? Beyond that, it's really hard to speculate, but I think it's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen like all at once. I don't believe it's going to be exponential, even though the pace of technological change is exponential. We run into just the fact of the humans on the ground. It's gonna take time. But I'd say we're gonna see big changes over the coming years for sure.
I would love your input on any advice you would give to maybe a new lawyer entering the field, and they realize they don't necessarily want to work for a firm right away or just start their own firm, but rather get into this intersection of law and business, right? Where you can see a clear path to a chief legal officer. What are the first steps you would take to move in that direction correctly?
I think it would be the same advice, actually, whether you want to work at a company or even work at a law firm. And it goes back to what I said um, earlier. Uh, you, I think more and more people are going to want to be cross-functional in their thinking. They're going to want to take lawyers are going to want to take a business first approach. Um, because more and more this sort of rote legal work, I'll call it the technical legal work, it's going to be, I think it's going to be devalued in a sense. And what's going to remain? It's going to be that, as I call it, that human element, whether it's relationship driven or sort of tying together the messy facts of life that you can't sort of reduce down to a data set that can be, easily computed. And I think those are the things that are going to be that are going to survive a lot longer. And then so maybe you can tell what the legally correct answer will be in a certain situation. Whether it's an employee issue, dealing with a tricky customer issue, or the best negotiating strategy. But I think it's going to mean being more than just a risk manager. It's going to be towards being interdisciplinary and having that context to apply the wise judgment that your clients, whether internal or external, are going to want. The other thing that I'd say is, and I think it goes hand in hand with me being cross-functional, multidisciplinary, um, sort of expand you're going to want to expand your view on what's relevant to you, to the industry. Now, of course, keep up on the legal reading, but keep up with the tech, keep up with the business, keep up with understanding what's going on in your industry. That's always been important, but I think it's just going to be way more important to show your value as a legal professional and eventually as a leader, as this technology takes some of these technical aspects of the law away from being as valuable.
JP, another thing that's interesting to me is, I think a subset of what you just described is keeping up with regulation and keeping up with how it's being discussed amongst different regulatory bodies, whether that's state bars across, whether that's ABA rules, whether that's state legislatures, or if there's ever going to be any sort of federal guidance. I live in Texas. The legislature just met, and it's fascinating to me to watch them try and have a sensible conversation about AI. Like it's the pace is so much more rapid than the conversation that they're having. How do you participate in this? How do you monitor these regulations? How do you prepare for ones that don't yet exist? How do you react to them?
Yeah, so I try to subscribe to various blogs, subscriptions. There's a lot of there's free and paid information out there in various fields like whether it's IP, privacy, am law. You have all the um sort of the 360 type of uh and I think sort of eventually, like, if it's important, you're gonna see it like in more than one place. And I think just that's how I keep track of things. Maybe other people have different ways. Um and then you just monitor. I think I don't know that it's any different than it has been for the last, for decades. I think you just have more access. It's more instant. Um, and I think the job is, in a sense, it's, there's less friction to understanding what's out there.
Are there any regulations, or are there any discussions that are happening on the regulatory front that concern you?
That concern me. I mean, I think the one that not from a practitioner standpoint, but just from sort of a societal standpoint, the one on copyright and its use in generative AI. And I think it wasn't hard to kind of predict it would be a big deal. I mean, we saw an analog of that with what was it, Google Books, or right, and then they eventually came to a settlement. But this is really fundamental, right? You I don't know if you guys saw the what is it, Studio Ghibli, like it's it's really bad because, on the one hand, we want to progress technology, and the other hand, you have this really fundamental set of IP rights, and how, like, and they seem to really be at odds with each other. we're going to advance this technology and we're going to de-incentivize humans for doing exactly what it eventually, means to be human. So that's probably the one that concerns me the most. I don't know that it directly applies, directly impacts Verbit, you know, or me as a professional, but I just, you know, sort of on pins and needles to see how that one plays out. I think it's a really tough one from my perspective.
Ruling exactly? Did they essentially say, as long as it's AI generated, it can't be copyrighted, or was it as long as it was AI generated with some tweaks, it can be copyrighted? What was the final judgment on that?
I think we still have open litigations actually. And it's not I don't think the question is whether the AI generated content is copyrightable. I think just to clarify, and I should have given more context. The issue is that you have you all the training data that these LLMs are pulling from, it's all created by humans, right? It's all the creative work of humans. So that is definitely copyrightable, right? And then when I said Studio Ghibli, it's like a Japanese artist who has this very distinctive, uh, way of drawing, and then you can extrapolate that from that with AI, and whether or not the AI's sort of extrapolated, um, uh, artwork, I don't think it is legally is copyrightable. I think we have case law. There was a monkey that took photographs, I think, a couple decades ago, and there was a case about that. But I think the issue is, okay, we're going to train AI, generative AI, to do all these wonderful things, but it's on the backs of all this work of real human beings, and it's not just unfair, but it's potentially disincentivizing for humans to continue to put their effort into this stuff when they know it's going to be essentially, whether you call it stolen or not, it's going to be sort of repurposed, and then a lot of that sort of work is sweat and tears that you put into it as a human being. It's going to be taken into this amorphous LLM and then used for maybe for the good of society. I think technological progress is good, but again, it's a total odds. I think, as and I came from the IP world. It's a total odds with protecting the rights of artists and inventors.
Yeah, it's a scary proposition in a lot of ways. I mean, whenever we've had so many guests on this podcast, JP, who talk about the tech revolution that is AI, and then there's always a similar set of reference points. Okay, when email came about, or when case law was digitized, or when we shifted to the cloud, or this feels so different to me because I do think that there is that effect on human creativity that seems to be much more profound. And you even alluded to it actually on the panel you were talking about Legal Week, right? How do you train young associates? They just there's a fundamentally different skill set. And I teach at a law school and I see that firsthand, I think. Like the skills that are being developed and that they're good at are very different than even 5 years ago or 10 years ago. So can you dig into that tension a little bit more? Tech progress being good, but also like the real substantive maybe concerns about what this specific progress on the tech front actually like might be leaving in its wake?
Yeah, I mean, so putting sort of the longer discussion we just had on the copyright issue aside, I mean, look, I have young kids, right? And they love drawing, right? But they also love to come ask me, "Hey, Dad, can you like generate me uh a picture of a unicorn in a meadow with, whatever, right?" And I sometimes I do that, but I kind of wonder, just, sometimes, okay, i- is the ability to do that, as a kid, right? You want a picture, right? Well, you want to create something, and you're not really thinking about what is the process to get there. So it's like instant gratification. And whereas maybe 10 years ago, of course, they're gonna do it all themselves. And now you can just get exactly that, whatever that thing you wanted. And I think it's just gonna get even better at, of course, at creating these things. And I think it's a very analogous discussion to what we're talking in terms of training attorneys or training professionals. If you can get that output and solve your problem now, like why would you waste your time doing that? And it's kind of, but you're sort of sacrificing that long-term training and learning, and we learn from failure, right? And you're sacrificing that so you can get that perfect result now and solve your problem now. And I mean, it's a temptation that's like impossible to resist. And I think, we need to figure out how to get around it. But, I'm sort of identifying a problem. I don't have a great solution. But I think that's sort of that's maybe the second thing that really concerns me about all of this, that training aspect. So you have the disincentivization of artists and creators, but then even for the people that maybe aren't being so, creating these fundamental, works of art or whatever, they're also seeing a downside to this that I think, to the detriment of all.
It's interesting. It's like we're losing the essence of craft, right? Being able to hone a skill and have a lot of pride in this craft and years of history. So, right, to build this skill.
Yeah, what I said, I mean, look, the counter argument is, well, JP, you're just a Luddite because, like, this is what happens with any technology, right? You could say, when email came out, well, you're no longer, you no longer have the skill set to write a beautiful letter, right? Or when legal research came out, you never had, you no longer had that uh, sort of skill set to be very methodical and careful and actually read the cases. Now you're just going straight to the case highlights, right? But I don't know. It's to me, it just feels completely different. And it's hard to put your finger on it. But I think we really are losing something that maybe we didn't lose before.
Yeah. JP, I used to live in New York too, and I remember someone one time saying, things fundamentally changed in New York when tourists did not have to talk to New Yorkers to figure out where to go in New York or how to get from point A to point B.
Yes.
And and in a way, to me, I think about that all the time. I was in a meeting recently where someone asked a question, like said something like, "I don't know what this means." And there was sort of like a shared sense of awe that someone would ask a question when usually the immediate step is not to publicly ask it. It's to sort of go to your phone, Wikipedia it, get the answer right then and there. So to your point about failure, to your point about not having to dwell in these like difficult, what's the answer? How do I get the answer moments? That to me, I agree with you. I think that there is something really profoundly deep that might save people engaging with law firms a lot of money and might restructure the legal industry and other industries. But from a human level, I agree with you. I'm wondering the depths of this change and how significant it's going to be just on human development.
Yeah, not to belabor it, but another analogy from sort of the technology, area is, you may be aware, like, sort of software builds and builds on itself and on the hardware. So actually, we have all this old server hardware, as I understand it, sort of as layman, that is built with uh very sort of low level software. And today everyone's sort of like Python and even like vibe coding. They're not even really coding, right? Um, and so, but you have all this stuff that, like, the servers and the infrastructure is built on, and like all the engineers who like actually understand that stuff, they're they're like retiring now. And like who's gonna bother to learn in school, like how to maintain this kind of stuff? And I think that's kind of going to what my concern is. When you're so far away from what you might need, that's when I think you kind of you kind of run into problems. Like, it becomes a black box for sort of future generations of lawyers if you're sort of operating as such a, I'll say, abstracted layer from what the basic skill set is.
Key issues, right? I'm curious if you see a new frontier of IP issues arising when it comes to AI and being able to capture maybe something very similar to another company's IP from a coding standpoint using AI? Because like you said, people are vibe coding, and we've seen instances of people putting in some source code into AI, and then it becomes part of the pool that it can utilize. Do you see a future where this is going to be a hot button issue with IP law?
I think it's a great point. And this is my personal take on it is, I don't think it will from the copyright standpoint. I think theoretically there could be copyright infringement all over the place, but I think you run into a big data issue. Like if I'm understanding the question correctly, sort of, it's all in the LLM. You put a prompt, you pull some needle out of the haystack. You don't know whose needle it is, and then and then it's exacerbated because the code is the code is on your servers. The source code is not out there for the public to see. So I just think it's gonna be there's definitely gonna be infringement going on. And I think it's definitely gonna be impossible for anyone to detect. And I think this goes back to the discussion we had earlier, right? It's you have all this IP that's being there's a free use of it. Again, maybe to the benefit of all because it's going back to the commons, but then you're forgetting the basic principles of IP, which is you need to incentivize creators and inventors and artists to want to put this stuff out there in the first place. And I think that's where we're getting to. Absolutely, this code is going to be, anything that's on the internet. I think it's essentially kind of becomes open source, unfortunately.
JP, here's a question for you. Do you have any sort of contrarian views about AI that people in the tech industry would disagree with?
I don't know. I mean, I think if you poll 10 people, you get 10 different answers. I definitely I'm in the camp that AI is going to be replacing work that's done by professionals, and I always hear the argument, well, that's just going to create more jobs, but I'm not sure this time. I'm sort of in a camp that not to be a fearmonger, but I think it's really coming after the white collar professions, and I don't see a world where all of this work, what used to be relatively high level work gets replaced with something else. I think this is truly different than it was.
All right, that is a good take. Honestly, is that your hot take? I was just gonna ask you this because we always ask at the end of the episode. What is your hot take?
I'll give you a real hot take. Within the next 3 years, we're going to see the first plaintiff's firm 10 gross revenue in the U.S. out of law firms. And I'd say that it'll have the highest profits per partner at that point. Plaintiff's firms, it's kind of if you know how they work, it's kind of very operational. It's pretty sort of do a lot of work with a small team, and sending out the settlement lawyer letter to the insurance company, doing the back and forth, going out and finding clients. I think all of that stuff is the best plaintiff's attorneys have turned that into a business, sort of a machine. And I think that's the kind of, and the incentive there is it's not necessarily to bill hours, right? The incentive there is to get your cut of the settlement or verdict. And so just kind of thinking of, if I were an enterprising plaintiff's attorney, I would be all over AI and seeing how can I just leverage this to the max.
Much for our audience for tuning into Between the Briefs, brought to you by Steno. Special thanks to our guest JP Sun for sharing his insights on the intersection of law, AI, and legal technology. His perspective on how AI is shaping the future of legal practice is very exciting and maybe even controversial. Yeah. And of course, a big thank you to my co-host Joe Stevens for another great conversation.
Likewise, Adrian, this was a really good one. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode, and stay tuned for more thought-provoking discussions at the intersection of law, technology, and innovation. We'll see you next time.
Up next on Between the Briefs.
What does it mean to innovate in the practice of law? What are the key objectives? And to me, it was ultimately making more money. And you do that through materially enhancing what clients are getting, the client service and the output to the client.
Stay tuned for the full interview coming to you soon. Between the Briefs is brought to you by Steno. To find out more about Steno and how we combine exceptional court reporting and litigation support services to deliver a superior litigation experience, visit steno.com. That's STENO.com. And then make sure to search for Between the Briefs in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else you get your podcasts, and click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at Steno, thanks for listening.